Good morning, everyone. My name is Doris Rodriguez, and we'll get started in just a few minutes.
Doris, I don't hear you.
No. Can you hear me now?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Alrighty. I would like to apologize to everyone in advance. We are unable to provide Spanish interpretation due to unforeseen circumstances. We are planning on repeating this workshop again later in fall after the school year begins. So thank you for understanding. Por circunstancias fuera de nuestro control, no podemos proporcionar interpretación en español. So me disculpo. Planeamos en repetir este taller a finales de otoño tras comenzar el año escolar. Gracias por su comprensión. Now, if you allow me a few seconds to connect to our Facebook. All right. Before we begin, I want to let you know that we are broadcasting today's event live via our Facebook page. I want to give a warm welcome to those joining us there. A few housekeeping notes. Everyone who registered via Zoom will receive a copy of the presentation via slides, via follow-up email within the next few days. A survey will be shared in the chat and a QR code at the end of the presentation. We will have the time at the end of the presentation for Q&A, which will be done in Spanish and in English as well. We encourage questions at any time. However, please remember this is a public forum, so we are being broadcasted on Facebook. My name is Doris Rodriguez, and I am the Autism Initiative Coordinator here at Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center. A few words about Synergia's Autism Initiative. The Autism Initiative project is funded by a grant from the New York City Council under its Autism Initiative. This project supplements the work of Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center by bringing increased awareness to New York City's residents, particularly to the communities with large Spanish-speaking populations, about the growing number of children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Its strong outreach components targets families of children with suspected or non-diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder who are not receiving appropriate educational, health, and other related services. The initiative will link them to other services and supports that meet the individual's needs of children and their families. I want to thank you all for joining us. We're glad that you choose to be with us today. Before we get into it, I would like to introduce our presenters today. I want to welcome Ms. Sarah Catalinotto, founder of the Parents to Improve Students Transportation, and Ms. Rima Izquierdo, trainer and developer here at the Metropolitan Parent Center at Synergia. So glad you could be here with us today. We have so many questions, so I'll let you get to it. For those of you who will be joining us after the presentation concludes, the presenters will then answer your questions. So please, if you're joining us via Facebook Live, if you have questions, please place them in the comment section. I will now hand it over to Ms. Sarah and Rima. Thank you.
Good morning, bienvenido. There will be three question spaces throughout the presentation. So you don't necessarily have to wait until the end, although we will try to answer things that relate to the topic that was just discussed in those three, segments. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rima Izquierdo, and I am the trainer here at the Metropolitan Parent Center at Synergia. So today we're going to be talking Where's My Bus? The September version of New York Student Transportation. And just a brief overview, we're going to go through our welcome, our agenda. This is recorded. And there will be a Q&A at the end. Again, there'll be 3 sections throughout, and there'll be a survey link in the chat as well as QR for feedback, so you can let us know how we did. Today, we'll cover the following topics. What is student transportation? How does it work? Eligibility and exceptions, accommodations, who provides student transportation, and then we'll go into a bit about rideshare, reimbursement, the app, a lot of other details. And as Doris mentioned, so I won't go into too much detail, Synergy is a nonprofit. We are based in East Harlem and have been here for almost 50 years serving New York City, English-Spanish bilingual community. We are one of the federally funded parent centers. These are our partners, and these are the different services that we all provide. You can take a screenshot so that you have that for your information later. And as mentioned, the Autism Initiative supports our families. And just want to let you know, we do have registration open for our programs, so please contact us. Back to transportation. How much do you know? So if everybody doesn't mind, if you can just engage with us in the Q&A and let us know if you think you're busing experts, if you know a little bit, you want to know, but it keeps changing. Just let us know what you know today, and that'll help guide how much information, we give you as beginners or as advanced, right? So we want to know who's here and what you want to know today. And again, if you have specific things that you would like to hear about, you can put that in the Q&A as well and let us know so we can cover that too. If you're on Facebook, please just put it in the chat. All right. So basically, student transportation is a right. It's covered in the Chancellor's Regulations A801 for New York City. And the New York City Public Schools, or the Department of Education, provides transportation for all eligible students. And that it doesn't matter if it's public, charter, non-public. That's for the whole city, the school district of the city of New York. And this is in partnership with the Metropolitan Transit Authority, also known as MTA, and our school age and preschool bus companies. And their mission is to provide reliable transportation to and from school. I do want to take a minute. I do see the raised hand. We won't be taking live questions, but we will be taking questions from the chat. And for anybody that just joined us, disculpa que no tenemos interpretación hoy. Voy a hacer otro taller en español más tarde en el año, pero hoy discúlpanos que no podía hacer. Okay, and we're going to move forward. How does student transportation work? So if you have a student that has that just takes MTA to school, a regular city bus, they're going to go to the bus stop, get on the bus, go to school, and walk the rest of the way. If you have a student that has a yellow bus and is going to a bus stop, right? That may look like for a general education student that lives far from school or has another eligibility criteria. Those students will walk to their bus stop, wherever that is in their community by their home. They'll take the bus. There may be several students getting on at that stop. And then they'll all go to the school, get off at the school, and same thing, return to home and be dropped off back at that community stop. Specialized busing will then have, it may be door to door, where the bus is going to go to the student's house. They're going to pick up the student from their home. They're going to drop them off at the school. That's why they call it door to door, pick up not at your door, but at your curb, and then drop off at your school. Sarah, would you like to add a little bit about just the basic view of what student transportation looks like for families?
Well, I think the next slide shows us those 3 options. And that's all I wanted to say. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of each one a little bit, and I'm actually already seeing, questions and concerns in the chat, in the Q&A.
Excellent. So, and again, this is round 2. So we're not going to go into the very specifics. We're just going to do overviews of the themes and really talk about how to fix issues, how to get busing, how to get accommodations. So these are just the methods of transportation. It's either going to be a Metro card, which is now Omni, stop to school, which we discussed, and curb to school, also known as door to door. So student Omni cards are now here, and this is what's replacing the student Metro cards. And some key differences are that these cards are going to provide 4 free trips each day, including the weekend. And each of these trips is going to allow a free transfer between the subway and local, limited, and select bus services, or a free transfer between buses. So this is a key difference in the Omni cards versus the Metro cards, and the weekend service, right? So this is a really great addition, and we greatly appreciate it. We will say that, again, this is only for students that do not take the yellow bus or walk to school. There are eligibility criteria for everything provided. And so if you're already on a bus, then you have student transportation and you would not be eligible for an Omni card. As a note, there is advocacy going on around this, and the belief that students that take the yellow bus should have access to some version of an Omni card to be able to have the trips for the after-school programs and for weekend programs. But that is not something that we currently have, but there is advocacy going on, and you can contact PIST if you'd like to know how to get more involved on these different advocacy points. Types of school bus service. So as we mentioned, there's stop to school, where the bus picks up groups of students at stops within the community, not at any particular person's home, and drops the group off to the school. Same thing in reverse. And this is based on distance, grade, and non-medical exemptions. Your school must participate in the bus program, and again, your child must meet the eligibility criteria. That means that they need to meet something to be able to get that service. And then curb to school or door to door is, again, when they pick up at your home and they drop off to the school, and they do the same thing going back. And students that have this type of transportation usually have an IEP, an individualized education program, or a 504 accommodations plan, and or some other exemption criteria. And these routes have a trained driver and attendant on board. So curb to school and specialized bus service, I'd actually like if Sarah, you can start taking this slide.
Okay, so we used to call this door to door, and this is the big difference. The way to have the bus come directly onto your block at the safest possible sidewalk is either through the individualized education plan, the IEP, where it's recommended along with accommodations that are medically necessary. We'll talk about that process of getting it through those IEP meetings. The other way, second in the middle, is the Section 504, which is also a federal civil rights law. And those can be developed in the school with a committee. But again, you're still applying for the Office of Pupil Transportation to provide the service in both of those cases. And in the final case of medical exception, that would be if your child normally could get to school by other means, but some kind of medical crisis has occurred in which they need busing until they heal from surgery or pregnancy or, broken bones. And we will be showing very soon the correct application forms for each for each example. We can go next.
All right, and we keep saying IEP, so we want to tell you what an IEP is. An IEP is an acronym, and we're going to be talking lots of acronyms, just the nature of special education, and it's an individualized education program. And the IEP is the plan, the blueprint, the guide for what school is going to look like for a student and how their special education and related services under IDEA are going to be implemented. Now, IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and this is the federal law that ensures that a student's IEP is carried out as written. This is the responsibility of the student's school. So if the IEP says that a student has to have a small bus, then the small bus must be provided as per this federal law. And again, the IEP mandates a specific set of supports, activities, and services that have been identified to support a student's unique needs. So if that means that a student needs to take a bus with an air conditioner, then that's what must be provided because that's been identified as the support that the student requires to access their education. Who approves student transportation? So New York City Public Schools, or DOE, Department of Education, all of those terms are interchangeable. They are the stewards or the overseers of all of special education mandates in New York City, right? So for transportation. So any student that needs transportation in the city, the New York City Public Schools has to provide it. Now, within the New York City Public Schools is the Office of Pupil Transportation. That's the office that's charged with actually doing the routing and the implementing all of the pieces that go with getting kids to school and from school on a bus, whether that's or train, right? Whether that's MTA, school buses, they do it all. And then within there are the pocket of students who not only require transportation or specialized transportation, but they may also require specific accommodations that are related to health. Now, for students that fall into this category, there is very specific eligibility and application criteria, but this would fall then to the Office of School Health or OSH. So if a student, for example, needed limited time and they needed to be on the bus for less amount of time than the route is planned, then they would have to fill out a form, and that form would go to the Office of School Health, and a doctor there would review it. And in reviewing this, they would then decide if this was approved or not approved. So this is the structure of how a student becomes eligible, who within the structure makes those decisions, and then who makes the decisions about the accommodations and exemptions. And we'll go more into that in a moment. Who's who? Who provides what? So, New York City Public Schools is kind of the umbrella as far as the students, right? So within New York City Public Schools, there's the Office of Pupil Transportation, which is OPT. And under OPT, we have our directors, regional liaisons, routers, and then you have the call center. So you as a parent may, or even as a professional, may not speak to all of these different people, but you will likely interact with the OPT call center. So that's the and we're going to share the information letter, but that's the 718 number that everyone calls when your bus is late or when you have to file a complaint because maybe you don't have a bus or something happened with, if something happens, you call OPT. So that's the call center, and that's kind of the first line of escalation, so to speak, right? So you go to OPT, and then they have the routers. So if there's an issue with a route, those are the people that kind of step in and they review the route and they make any adjustments necessary. And then you have regional liaisons, and they kind of go between, the larger systems, right? So OPT and the school district, and um, the schools sometimes, if there are larger issues, and they kind of determine who needs support where, and they provide support for our professionals in schools. And then you have the directors, which there should kind of be one in each borough at least. Um, and they do day to day. Again, these are not people that we would speak to as professionals necessarily, or parents. You may get to speak to a router if there's a big issue, but OPT call center is where you're going to be. And then you have the Office of School Health, and they're going to be the office that has a doctor reviewing documents to say, yes, your child needs an air conditioner, it's approved. Yes, your child needs limited time on the bus, that's approved. That you need a special bus that has maybe like a wheelchair lift, or any other accommodation that is medical in nature, is going to go through the Office of School Health. And then you have your school staff, and that's, I guess, your actual first line, right? So like locally, this is where everybody is going to be getting their support. So in your schools, you're going to have a transportation coordinator. That's not going to be their only job. It could be your assistant principal, it could be your parent coordinator, it could be some other staff person, and they're going to be doing two jobs. They're not getting anything separate for being transportation coordinator, but lots of work, right? And so we are grateful for them and appreciate them. Um, and we ask you give them some grace, because a lot of the time we think that they have a whole lot of control over what happens, and they don't. They can't change your route, they can't change your pickup time. They may not even have the information for your route if there's an update or something. So give them a little bit of grace. And they are the ones in the school that should be supporting you, letting you know that your student has been routed. They should have your route information once the Office of People Transportation provides it. I just want to be clear that they're not going to have it as soon as it goes up. This is something that has to be sent to them via ridership. And then they should be able to give you that information, because we don't receive that in the mail anymore. The only way to access is through NYCSA, and they may tell you, call your school. This is the person in the school that's going to have that information. The office is not likely going to know. Your teacher is not going to know. So just want you to know that when you need something about the bus at school, you want to ask for your transportation coordinator. And then at the school, you also may have a student transportation paraprofessional, or an STP. And this is if your student has the accommodation for a para on the bus. And this person will be someone that is hired or contracted by the school to get on the bus with your student. They pick them up at your home, right? So they meet the student on the curb, and then the student enters the bus with the para. They take the ride with your student, and then they hand them off once they arrive to school with another staff person. It could be, again, somebody that is just there to grab the kids off the bus. It could be a teacher, it could be a para. It depends on the structure of your school. And you can contact your school for specifics about how that works, or you could just visit one day in the morning and check it out. And this para will then do the same thing on the way home. So they'll grab your student from wherever they are before busing, get on the bus with the student, and take the ride to the home, and then give the student to the parent. And then you have bus company vendor, and I'd like Sarah, if you can take the remaining items on this slide.
Unmuting. Okay, so yeah, a lot of time it's hard to know who is responsible for certain things and who can actually fix them. We don't have an arrangement that many other school districts have in other parts of this country. We don't have the buses belonging directly to the school system. They belong to private owners, and the only exception, sort of, is there's one nonprofit which has about 10% of the routes. But the point being, the routes that are created at OPT are then sent to these bus companies, and then they print out a roster for the bus, like an attendance sheet for the driver and the attendant slash matron to keep track and to take attendance. They can point out if there's something wrong with the route, but they aren't really they don't have their own power to just change it without discussing it with the Office of Pupil Transportation first. And so similarly, the driver and the matron, after their trip, can submit what's called oh my goodness, it's a report. It's not the mechanical report, but they can say, like, there's all these loops in this route. It doesn't have to be so indirect. They can do that. It can sometimes depend, you know, how empowered they feel in their job, if they are connected with a strong union or not, you know, which also varies from company to company. So we are going to talk somewhat about how you, as the parent, and your fellow parents and your school can say something has to be fixed, but it doesn't really pay to holler at the people whose faces you see directly, because they are sort of stuck with following the route sheet. But they can be helpful if they feel empowered to do so. And if you know that you're going to be complaining, it's sometimes good to be upfront about that with the driver, so that they will understand that you're trying to make their job more efficient, as well as making life better for your child. And you're not just coming at them, you know, as the enemy. So yeah, the school doesn't run the buses. The companies run it on a day-to-day. And you have, when we say manager and dispatch, that's who you call, you might get dispatched. And we do know that there's a lot of companies that aren't very good at answering their phones, but we do have some advice for that, I think, later on in the hot tips. Is that good?
Excellent. Thank you. All right, and now we are at questions. So we'll take the questions in the Q&A. So while I take these questions, Doris, if you can check in the Facebook if there's any questions over there, and then I'll check in with you. All right, so again, discúlpanos que no hay interpretación hoy en español, hace las circunstancias imprevistas, disculpa. Then I see that someone had said something about no show, no driver, 1 hour late. So we will be sharing. So Sarah shared her action steps from her website. We will be sharing these slides, and the slides have links in them where to fill out a form if you have a complaint, and other resources to support. Yes, everyone will receive a copy of this presentation in the next few days. My son has an IEP and 504, but unfortunately, OPT never met the criteria of my child's needs or accommodations. For example, limited time was never applied. I know you mentioned reimbursement. I would like to get more information about it. So we're going to cover reimbursement, not in a whole lot of detail, but we left the original slides from reimbursement from the first webinar, and we're going to bypass some of them, but we left them so you have them in this deck. If you need that information, it's going to be in there. And if you need extra support, you can always reach out to us at the Parent Center, and we'll include that information as well. In the IEP, if it's mentioned fewer students on the bus, how long should travel time be? If there is no time, there is no time. If they don't say 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 90 minutes, there's not a set time. Sarah?
Hi, yes, we're gonna share later the generic regulations about time by grade and borough situation, but what we've noticed is that the accommodation fewer students on bus is usually by itself, and limited time travel is a separate one. And we'll show that also in another section of this morning. But when it doesn't even have a specific number, like it doesn't mean there's no more than 9, or there's no more than 5, or there's no more than 12. It just means that when the router sees the map and the student's address and the school, if there's 2 or 3 routes to pick from that would be feasible, they need to select the one of those 2 or 3. They need to pick the one that has fewer students, because supposedly that, I mean, logically, that will take less time to just be getting a fewer number of students on and off the bus. So that's a newer, I think, accommodation. We don't have a lot of data about how well that's working for folks. You probably know it yourself. It's harder to enforce though because it's vague. It's a relative term. Fewer students than what?
Thank you. Then I see there was an announcement about a 2-trip Omni card for after-school access. All we have officially on that is that the expanded eligibility of Omni is under discussion. And that is an official response.
I would just
mhm.
add, Ellen, if you have a link to that, you know how to find us so that we can look into it further. And I'm sure it's in response to the advocacy that happened as soon as people saw that it's been announced that every student can go everywhere and do everything and learn from New York with this Omni. But we know that it's not every student, and there are politicians, elected officials addressing this. There are elected parent leaders addressing this, and also the whole school transportation network or movement, if you will. We spoke about this a lot at a recent town hall, and it's, like Rima said, to be continued. But thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Regarding the app, parents may be aware how to track bus. Not many are aware of this. So we'll be talking about the bus app as well a little bit later. I have called OPT and received the case number, and it really doesn't resolve anything. So we're going to go through a little later about escalations and how to escalate your escalation and escalate your escalation's escalation. And then what you can do if that doesn't work. The bus hasn't worked in a bit for me. I was told that GPS would be fixed. So we like to tell everybody to please filing that complaint every day on the GPS. There was a lot of money contracted to support that initiative, and it really is great for parents if it works the way it's intended to. So if you're able and have the time, the patience, again, I believe, we have an online link that you can file your incidents to file escalations for OPT as well. So please do so, because it generates data. And so every time you file a complaint, there's an incident number, or make sure there is. You ask for one if they don't give you one. And that's how you know that it was recorded. And so that's going to show that they have X amount of complaints on the app. They have, of those, X amount don't work. And so then this is, they can identify issues. You can't fix something you're unaware of. They may not be users of the app. So, we as users and parents, we need to be the eyes and ears, and we need to report to make sure that there's data to support if there's work that needs to be done, that they identify it sooner than later and fix it for us. What is a reasonable time if a pickup time is 1:40 p.m. and the school is 1.5 miles away? So the first thing I want to say is that school does not end at 1:40 p.m. Unless you have like a half day program or something, but in general, New York City public schools at least have a dismissal time of at least 2 o'clock. I mean, there could be maybe high schools that get out earlier. That's possible. But in general, you want to check your students' dismissal time and make sure that your bus time is aligned with your dismissal time and that your student is not missing instructional time because of busing. The second part is that the thing is that, and again, I'm sure Sarah's going to say it, that it doesn't matter how far your school is. Unfortunately, it goes by age, location, and there's a set number of minutes for each route within age, location, and grade band. So it doesn't make as much sense as we would like it to. Sarah, go ahead.
Right. There's so much to say about this. I don't know where to begin. We'll come back to this, I think, in the next section when we show you what the Office of Pupil Transportation considers reasonable, and that will help you understand why we're in this fight to, get it to be more student-centered and more humane, without having to hop through multiple hoops and ask for accommodations, which we'll also tell you how to do if it comes down to that. I'll quit there.
Thank you. What can I do if my child's bus is constantly late, very late, both in the AM and in the PM? Numerous complaints have been made to OPT from the school and parents of the kids on the bus, but nothing has been done. My daughter gets out of school at 2:50, but is getting dropped off after 7 p.m. It's been very frustrating situation, and I feel like I'm not getting any help from OPT. We're gonna cover that in the escalation section. Our school bus is mandatory to arrive 15 minutes before school session begins. No. Busing starts at 1:40 at District 75 schools. No, they don't. So District 75 schools are the same as all New York City public schools. So they don't have a special drop-off time or a special set of rules that governs them differently from other schools. And because it's a New York City public school, our teachers are UFT. They're a union called the United Federation of Teachers, and their contracts cover a certain amount of hours a day of instruction. And so in New York City public schools, they can't get out before a certain time. So they busing in a District 75 school should not be starting at 1:40. If you could please check. So if you go on your Nixa app and you look at your transportation information, it should tell you the school start time and end time. So it should tell you school starts at 8:10 and ends at 2:20. And you can also call your school to find out what your call and ask what your hours are for the school day. Usually when you call the school, it says the hours in the recording. So you might not even have to speak to somebody. But I recommend finding out what time your dismissal is supposed to be. And if you need more support on this, because this is not actually covered in this presentation, please reach out to us at the Parent Center. Doris, if you can please put the information for intake in the chat now, so that our participant can reach out for support. Thank you. I'm gonna take these last two and then we'll move back on. Go ahead, Sarah. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and the next two also address it, this problem of students getting picked up early. Just for some context, they have the right to get the same amount of minutes at school as students without disabilities. Otherwise, it's discrimination. So keep that in mind, number one. And number two, if that student has a paraprofessional riding on the bus with them and they try to clock in at 1:40 and school is still in session, they cannot get paid for serving your child as a support person during that ride. And they might leave the assignment. They have to feed their families too. So advocating about this is our responsibility, not just to our own children, but to the bigger picture of everyone involved in special education as a consumer or a producer, we could say. I'll stop.
Thank you. And then it says buses are doing this, picking up children early before dismissal. I had to address this at my son's school. My son on today two pickup was on day two was told was pickup was at 2 p.m. I rejected it. Parents need to complain or address this at the school. Absolutely. And in our escalation path, it can be addressed in many of those as well, because we will teach you how to escalate outside of the school system to help you get real responses and support. And then it says maybe you should be documenting the times and reporting the times to the superintendent at District 75. That's also part of our escalation path, and we'll discuss that more later on in the presentation. So, Sarah, you can add what you need, and then we'll move forward. And then we'll see if there's Facebook questions.
Okay, so while Doris is checking the Facebook questions and getting ready to tell us, I may have missed it, but there were at least two questions about the Where is My Bus tracking app. And just hang on, because there are some slides, I think, that show you what it should look like and that, give you links or suggestions of where to find that. And we'll also talk about some of the reasons why. And I know Rima did say that no matter what, you can complain about it. But yeah, that's coming up as well. So I'll mark those done.
Awesome. Thank you. Doris, anything on Facebook?
Currently, there are no questions on Facebook.
Okay, excellent. So we'll move forward. Thank you. All right, so specialized transportation. So again, we're going to specifically talk about specialized transportation for the remainder of this presentation, and that is the transportation for students with disabilities that are receiving the curb-to-door, or known as door-to-door service. And this is, again, so this is transportation as a related service, as stated on the IEP. And again, we won't go into detail, but all of the medical and other equipment needs to be provided as written in the IEP. If there's a specific type of safety vest or car seat, if you need to have a lift for a wheelchair, if there needs to be temperature control, all these things have to, as exactly as it's written on the IEP, has to be done. So if there's supposed to be limited time and fewer students, then that should be reflected, and you should see that. You shouldn't see a student on the bus then for 2.5 hours with limited time. And again, the staff on the bus from the companies have specialized training and should be able to support, whether that's using the wheelchair lift, putting the student in the car seat, securing a 5-point harness, all of those different things, they have to be trained on. It's specialized training. That has to be updated. So, make sure that feel free to ask. Feel free to ask, like, oh, have you been trained on? And, make sure that everything that your student needs, they're able to provide. And then also you're supposed to have a consistent and on-time pickup schedule with telephone communication from the bus company if significant delay is expected. If there is a significant delay, and I want to say significant delay, let's define as more than 15 minutes in either direction. So either they're coming earlier than 15 minutes or later than 15 minutes, there should be some type of communication. The bus staff cannot call. That is not their job. And so I want to be clear that if the matron tells you she can't give you her number, she can't call you, that is in their right and their contracts. If they're nice enough to do so, and some are, then you got lucky, right? And that's great. The actual responsible party is the company. Somebody from the company or dispatch should be calling the families on that route to inform them of any changes that again are significant. So significant delay, significant changes. Does this always happen? We all know it doesn't. And if it does happen, maybe it's 5 minutes before, right? And you've been waiting for 2 hours and now they're calling you, hey, we're going to be late. I know, right? So I'm not saying that it's going to be the best communication, but it is required, right? They're mandated to provide this. So if they don't, you can call our the OPT helpline and you can file an incident, an escalation, and you'll get an incident number. Make sure you got an incident number, because if you don't, that means that it wasn't logged as an incident. And you can escalate these situations, and that would actually go under vendor misconduct. So when you call, if they don't know how to take that complaint, I had a delay, they never called to say anything, they never showed up, I'd like to file a vendor misconduct complaint. And they're supposed to provide advance notification when transportation eligibility is projected to change. So if a student was receiving a bus and now they're going into a higher grade or a different school, and they're no longer going to be eligible, there should be a conversation about this change in eligibility, and so that the IEP team can plan for it. Anything to add on this, Sarah?
Yeah, I would just add that something that we're seeing is not only buses coming too late, but buses coming way earlier than we thought, and than the family thought. And that just, I don't know if it was a coincidence, but it looked like a trend the beginning of this school year, and would love to hear from parents if that's the case with you. This again is the promises that are made of the responsibility directly from the schools.nyc.gov website, which you can visit. And it really will only happen with people staying on top of it, and with them hiring enough workers so that they don't get in a position of saying, okay, it's fine. Instead of having, 3 routes with 10 kids, go ahead and have 2 routes with 15 kids, or, So this is why we're organizing, to try to go beyond what the existing promises are to having it be a reality. That's all.
Thank you. So eligibility, and we're going to specifically talk right now IEP mandated. So this is, again, busing as a related service covered under the federal law IDEA, which guarantees that your IEP is delivered exactly as it says with all of the related services exactly as it's written. And failure to provide the mandated transportation and all associated accommodations as written is a violation of IDEA. And we'll talk more about the escalation paths for this in a little bit. 504 transportation accommodation. So I'm going to let Sarah take this slide. And this is just going to talk about the 504 process and how it differs from the IEP process.
Okay, so this is a series of slides to try to help avoid confusion between forms and processes that, if you just go to try to find it at your school even, or let alone online, there are forms that look slightly the same or have almost the same name, but serve these different purposes. So I'm happy to go through this next series, at least until as long as my voice lasts. And you will have this with the live links, I believe, afterwards. So if the child needs transportation, even without an IEP, and sometimes some students have both, there is a form that has several pages, and we're going to show you that. And you have to sign a release for the medical provider to discuss your health information, the child's health information, with the school Office of School Health and so on. So next. Okay, other students who don't have an IEP or a 504, but wouldn't normally get busing because they are higher than 6th grade, or they live, very far out of the district. That happens in some of these cases: temporary housing, foster care, joint custody between two parents, someone with a victim who's a victim of a crime and therefore has to go to a different school now, someone with an order of protection, hazards such as there's no sidewalk, there's no place safe for the child to get themselves to school walking, because of issues of the terrain, not because you feel like your neighborhood is unsafe or something like that. And we're going to save those slides until the very end in case somebody has a specific question, but we're going to show you the general form for all of that. And then, as you notice, the last one on this list is medical, which is actually going to be more similar to the IEP process, and we'll show you, but without all the meetings, just the same forms. We'll show you that soon. Next. Okay, so the exception form for those first 6 that had nothing to do with the child's physical or neurological condition, these can be applied for on the website, and the link will be available from us to you. It's on the bottom of the slide, but we just wanted to show that there's a path to finding this within the website, and there's on the top right, you can download a sample before you start answering all the questions to just see an example of how each portion gets filled out. And you're going to find that it has, well, when they had the paper form, it had all of the 6 things, but you don't have to fill out everything. You just have to fill out the ones that pertain to your student. And we'll say this again, but if the child already has specialized transportation through an IEP or a 504, they do not have to fill out the exception form, you know, even if they've got these other things, because you have already local, state, and federal right to transportation as a disability service. Next, if possible. Okay, I'll give people a moment to read that. So some of the transportation itself and accommodations like limited travel time or the paraprofessional or nurse support are available within this 504 accommodations process. And again, you'll still have to do these longer forms, the HIPAA release, and having a doctor fill out specific forms. These are the long-term medical conditions that affect the child's ability to public transportation to then be reviewed by the 504 team on site. And we're going to show you those forms. Hang on. Next. Okay. Other medical exceptions is, again, when they don't have permanent or long-term busing, but they need it short-term, such as healing from surgery. The parent is going to submit something called a medical exception request form and the HIPAA, which is the doctor, allowing the doctor to talk to OPT, and there's an email to send that to directly. So that one is not through the website with the sample that we showed you. This is a specific process. And again, you need to follow up. You need to talk to your school about this quite a bit to make sure it gets going in a timely way. Next. All right, so just to help ourselves not get confused, Rima and I broke this down into situations A, B, C, and D. A is the IEP that I think is a lot of people on this webinar. B is the 504. C are the other medical exceptions, temporary. And D are the non-medical that we showed you can apply for online. Next. We have our visual aids. So A and C both have these two forms in common. If you're coming to an IEP meeting to say my child needs specialized transportation past pre-K, just having the attendant and the assistants up and down and, you know, all of that have to be considered as a medical accommodation under our current system. And sometimes you have to do it year after year. But when you're first adding it on or adding on something like limited travel time, even air conditioning, the doctor has to say, here's what the student experiences. This is how the disability manifests, and this is why it's not a good idea to have them on the bus a long time. You know, they may start hitting themselves. They may really suffer for physical reasons because they have a feeding tube or they have other fragility medically that will make them subject to actually become injured on a long, bumpy bus ride. Those details need to be filled out in this left-hand side medical evaluation request. And the right-hand side is the release form. The release form, we're going to show you, it can be printed out and read in the languages that the Department of Education uses. Okay, we can, I guess, go next. The only difference with BC is it's a temporary, but you're still explaining. And here we go in Español. This is the release form. We explain, and PIST has a link, a page on our website that We try to update every year in case these forms are changed and they have a different date on the top almost every year. Next. Okay, so this is the 504 and it's more paperwork. First, you have the request for health services. And this is the parent part on the left, and the parent is also filling out that same HIPAA form on the right. Okay, and it's hard to see it here, but we do show transportation. You can see as one of the sections toward the bottom of this 504 parent request. Next. Now it's medical accommodations request form to the Office of School Health, and it's a 3-page. But again, you would fill out the parts that are relevant to your child, if they don't have any allergies, if they don't need glucagon for diabetes crisis, don't fill those parts out, just put not applicable. But whatever, again, right up at the top on the page 1, transportation is one of the things you can request. And there's a lot of details that you can take your time to look at, again, through the links that will be shared. And I think that might be it. Next. Okay. Rima?
All right. So student transportation and school responsibility. So schools are supposed to provide transportation information to families. Again, in the past, we used to receive yellow envelopes, and those used to have our route information. That no longer happens since COVID, and now it is included in the New York City school account. So you have to have a NYCSA account, New York City school account, and within that dashboard, you'll find transportation, and then under transportation, you'll find the information listed for your route. It will not include all of the information that previously was shared from the yellow envelopes, but it will have your route, it will have your company, and a way to reach them, as well as the start and end time of your school. Schools have schools must ensure all students requiring transportation have routes, right? So what this means, or alternatives. So this means that if a student is supposed to have a route, but they identify that that student hasn't been routed yet, then they have to help them connect with alternative means, which could be rideshare, which could be a Metro card. It depends on the individual student situation. And then schools should have, hopefully have, transportation coordinators. And the parents communicate with them. And then the transportation coordinators are the ones that communicate with the regional liaisons in OPT. Now, the coordinators in your school can submit a complaint, and it's best practice if you submit a complaint, if you can get another parent on the route to submit a complaint, and if you can get the school to submit a complaint. That way, they are getting flagged in different ways. It's generating data, and that's going to result in somebody's going to have to check why we keep getting numerous complaints versus one complaint and then never doing another one, right? So if it's messed up in the morning and in the afternoon, file it in the morning and in the afternoon. And then school staff can also be assigned to pick up students from the bus or from a classroom and accompany them to whatever designated busing area. So if you're in a large school, there may be like a classroom that students gather in, or an auditorium, or in the cafeteria, and they may go there to wait for when their buses get called. Sometimes it's in front of the office, or they line up like it's a bus line. That may be more for like elementary, like smaller programs. But it looks different for each school. And we encourage you to ask your school, what is the setup for pickup and drop off and arrival and dismissal? What does that look like for your student? How to add busing accommodations to your IEP. So the first step is always you need a HIPAA form from the doctor, and you need to sign it, right? So once you have that done, you then hand that back into the school, and now they have the right to access certain information that they may need to get this accommodation for your child. So then next would be have the child's doctor fill out the medical evaluation request, formerly known as the request for medical transportation accommodations. And then you submit to the school, and then the assessment team, and decide what days are best to meet. So everything has a meeting, right? So if you have an IEP and you need to add something, you need to have a meeting. And if you have a meeting, there needs to be a prior written notice. So they're going to send you a letter, and you're going to sign it that says that you understand that they are opening the IEP, and you're going to have a meeting, and this is when it's going to happen. And the purpose of the meeting is to add busing, add accommodation, whatever it is. And then they'll send you a paper that says, we're going to meet on this date. So then you bring all your stuff from the doctor. They go through all of that. Now the team is going to sit together and finalize the IEP. They can add this, but it's not going to be added, it's going to be applied for. So when you have this, the school, the Office of School Health is, or Office of Pupil Transportation, and it could be Office of School Health, depending on what you're trying to add, they're going to receive this request, right? Because it's a request. And then they're going to see if that student is eligible for this accommodation that they're requesting. So now the IEP, you're not gonna, OPT is not going to see this new IEP until it's finalized. So you have to have the meeting, have it finalized. But then when they see it, you're still waiting for that decision to tell you, yes, you get limited time travel. Yes, you get the small minibus. So I just want to be clear that you're not going to have the meeting and then it's going to be that day, or when the date that it's supposed to be implemented is not going to necessarily have this accommodation in place. You could be waiting weeks for a response from the Office of School Health. It's unfortunate, but it's a small office and there are a lot of requests. And, as we mentioned, they cover the entire city. So please make sure that you are on top of your requests. And what does that mean? That if you make a request, keep following up. Make sure that your school is following up with the Office of School Health, or OPT, and ensure that that's the only way to cut the timeline down, is if you keep asking. Because maybe somebody then will go in and check, or you'll get it when it was supposed to be done. But that makes sure nobody forgets about it. It doesn't get mixed in with somebody else's information. And again, we'll discuss the escalation path to support when you feel you've been waiting too long. Anything to add about that, Sarah?
Right. This is important. The school has to tell their OPT liaison, which is assigned, to a few neighboring districts at a time. And the principal should know who that is. Transportation coordinator should know. It's not that hard to look it up on the website. We may have the link at the end, but they also have changes of personnel that occur. But the main thing to be aware is that not everybody at OPT is reading your child's IEP. They don't have that kind of access. It's a confidential document. So somebody has to bump it up. Somebody has to push and say, this is ready now. It says it's here. And I think, not to contradict, but I think that, the accommodation or the transportation being approved by those offices then gives the psychologist the right to put it into the IEP. And then there's a clerical person who has to finalize it. So, because they're under legal obligations to comply with time limits, they should do it very timely. But sometimes the reality of the staff strains psychologists working at 3 different schools or things of that nature. Different things can occur and drop off the radar, or they're waiting for a teacher to add something, or they're waiting for the speech teacher to send something. So Rima said it right. You are the one who's going to remember better than everybody that this needs to be handled yesterday. So you can be polite about it, but you have to be, firm and serious.
Thank you. And then there's detailed advice that is included at the bottom. And when you receive the slides, all of the links are live. Transportation accommodations on an IEP. So we have a lot of students that travel, on the bus to school, with and without IEPs. Now, some of our students need a little bit more, right? And again, we've been mentioning different accommodations throughout this presentation, and we'll talk about a few more in the next slides. So anybody from the team may recommend busing for children if they need an accommodation, and this affects their ability to travel to or from school. So if someone has identified that a student gets to school very agitated every day and then realizes that this route is 2 hours long, that this team member can recommend that we put in for an accommodation for limited time. And again, that can be anything, right? Maybe there's a student that's having behavioral challenges on a bus, and then we find out that there's 30 kids on the bus, but there's only 8 kids in his class. Then we can see if we can get a smaller bus or fewer students, and you really use the accommodations to support the students so that when they get to school, they're in the best mood to be able to learn, right? And these are not, oh, my child feels. No, this is an emotional struggle. It's a behavioral struggle. So when it becomes a struggle for a student, that's when you need to start considering accommodations. Once in a while, being frustrated, that's all of us, right? But when a student is getting to school every day and is needing an hour of redirection, the transportation should be looked into to see if there's something that they can adjust that can help the student. And so again, students may require some to travel safely, right? Like some of them may be because they have emotional, behavioral difficulties, but some may be like medical or nursing services, or like safety vests or car seats, and that might be for our younger learners. We do start busing for early intervention, and those students, I think they start as early as 2.9 years on the bus. So we need to make sure that for whatever size student we have, that there's a safety seat, a car seat, a safety vest, a 5-point harness, whatever is needed to keep that student safe. Buses are big vehicles, and you want to make sure that they have what they need. And day one, feel free to ask them, were you trained on how to use this? It's your child's safety, and so don't ever feel any kind of way about asking all the questions. And again, with grace, but firm, because that's your child. And then families who believe curb to school busing accommodations are necessary can reach out to their school or their CSC based IEP team. If it depends, right? So if you're in a charter school, it may be CSC IEP based or MPS school, but if you're in a DOE, New York City public school, your school-based support team might be on site. And there's a link at the bottom to support as well. Medical transportation accommodations. So going into detail about what the accommodations are, we have types of vehicles, right? So what kind of bus is going to pick up your child? And anybody that has been in the streets of New York City, which is all of us, I'm sure, have seen, the lines of the big buses. So those are the standard large buses that you usually see in the highway and in the street. I feel like those are the most common. And then you see the mini wagons. Those are like half the size of those buses. And we do see them a lot with our younger learners. And then that's an accommodation that can be requested if you have a learner that needs that smaller space, or that needs any of the accommodations that come with having this minibus. And then there are a few in between, right? So there's specialized vehicle, where there might be a smaller vehicle that they look like taxis or cars, and they may hold 1 to 3 students, for students that have more intensive difficulties with traveling. And then there's also a few other buses we didn't list, like there's the buses that have the wheelchair lift, that they're like medium sized. There's a few other sizes, even the mini wagons. I saw there was a question about how many students can be on a mini wagon. As much as we'd like for that to be regulated, it's not really regulated, and their count is strange. I really don't understand it. But in general, um, you want to just make sure that if you realize your student needs that, that you start requesting it as soon as possible. So that's kind of it for the buses. Um, Again, some of the minibuses hold more students than others, and they look the same size. So you could have this year 10 kids on your bus and next year 8, and have a minibus. That could be because that particular bus had more or less rows. So I just want to let you know that that's not a set number based on that size of bus. The internal structure of the bus may be different. And in general, they're going to use all the seats because there's a driver shortage. So more routes equals more drivers equals more routes without drivers. So they're going to fill to capacity if they can, to avoid having students without routes. And then there's other control. I see the word control. So environmental and temperature control is another accommodation. And we have 2035 in the side, and this is because there is a law or bill that we're hoping, with fidelity is implemented, that is supposed to regulate the school buses to have air conditioning. Again, 2035 is a bit away. It's a little bit away, I know. But this is why we need people to get involved with advocacy efforts to ensure that A, it happens, and B, maybe it happens sooner. So again, environmental temperature control is a great accommodation to ask for. This is when the bus is really hot or really cold. And a tip that I learned is to ask for dual temperature control. And that way you have the heat and the the AC covered for the summer and the winter. And then there are other things like one-to-one student transportation para, or STP, which we discussed earlier. And you can look in at the link in the slide deck for more information specific to the transportation paras. There's also nurses. There are seat accommodations. So, for example, you may have a student that has a para. That student would have to be coded as having 1 seat plus 1. You may have a student that is larger, and then that student may have 2 seats. And if the larger student then has a para, it would be 2 plus 1. So you want to look at those things because there are nuances to the IEP that really make the difference with the experience that your student has, that aren't necessarily discussed in the meeting or even understood by the members of the team, because they're not often users of transportation. It's not their fault that they don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And so it's really important to, workshops and community-based organizations and advocacy groups like PIST, because this is how we stay in the know, is talking to each other, word of mouth, and sharing our lived experience, and then teaching that to you all. And then we have the travel time limitation, also known as limited travel time, LTT, and fewer students on bus. Some of these accommodations have been said to be like old accommodations that they don't offer anymore, that students that had them are grandfathered for, which means that they just carry over. And so limited time travel is kind of one of those question areas where they're trying to adjust that one. And fewer students on the bus is one of the adjustments they made to try to compensate for that. Um, it's not the same. And I only want to mention it as a note so that if this affects you, that you're aware and that you can kind of be vigilant about this, but also know that you should be able to get limited time travel. And then if you have a wheelchair accessibility issue, you may need a specific bus, you need the lift, you may need an attendant, you may need a nurse. So just want to make sure that whatever you may need, that you know that there are accommodations for and that they're mandated to provide. Sarah?
I wanted to add that if you apply for something, especially limited travel time, they may say no right away. And it happens even when there's multiple pages of multiple medical specialists of, submitting. Just ask again, appeal, try again. We've seen, like I said, in the case that I have in mind, it was no at first, but the parent persisted and it became yes. However, in the manual for special education procedures locally, there was a footnote that the Office of Pupil Transportation can view the application and say it's not feasible. So hopefully they will only do this if, the school is in New Jersey and you are way on the opposite end of one of the boroughs, that it wouldn't be physically possible to get the child there in less than, the time that any other car could get there. But we are, again, having to be vigilant and make sure that that's not overused, because it would be feasible. Some of the things that are not feasible because it's inconvenient to the company to pay another driver are feasible for the civil rights of these students to get the very specific resources and services provided that they need. And yeah, so don't give up if the answer is no at first.
Thank you. All right. And Sarah, this is you too.
Okay, so this was a screenshot of the application that I thought the DOE was getting rid of, but they still have it. Some people say CSIS or CESIS, whatever it stands for. That's where IEPs are created statewide. And this was the page and what transportation accommodations are on the drop down that the school psychologists can see. And then they say transportation specific accommodations, meaning it's more about the vehicle than about, a human being or equipment from outside that has to be added to it, I guess. So it's similar to what Rima listed on the previous couple of slides, but there's a few other ones, like if it's a dead end street and the bus cannot go into it, they have to figure out something special for that and so forth. So yeah, we say this with a disclaimer that it might be changed since the time that I was able to get access to this, and I also want you to notice that when these IEPs were, if you look at the one that's checked off, which is the limited time, when these IEPs were written by hand, it was easy for the team to put what the doctor said, whether it was, 30 minutes because this child has a severe physical condition and it's not safe for them to be on the road that long, or 45, or something in between the 60 and 75. That's not really so easy now. I would say it's not impossible, but right now the drop down gives you 60 minutes. It's like a standard limited time. So it's already contradicts individualized as the concept, but 60 minutes when you're going from a home in one borough to a school in that same borough, and not more than 90 minutes if you're going from one borough to the other as the child travels to and from school. They can, and you guys know from IEPs, there are parts where details and things can be elaborated manually by someone typing it in. So, you know, if you have that meeting and your doctor said such and such, and it has by some miracle been approved, have the people write it in other spots, because this might not be printed out when you look at it. So you need it to be referenced under, you know, aids and supports to help the student, something like that. Okay, that's a lot. I'll stop.
Thank you. And again, that's stuff that people don't usually see, and we want to let you guys know what your options are and that it's there. So, students in temporary housing and students in foster care. And again, we're not going to go deep into this. We just want to let you know that they are eligible for busing to school for K to 6, and there's an exceptions form that we've included in the deck, so you can click and access the form right there, and that these are the different groups that are eligible. So again, you know, foster care, our DV shelters, doubled up situations, which is important to know what that is, right? So if somebody lives with somebody else and they're not on the lease, or they don't like that, they're not living in that home. For example, you live with your grandma, right? Like right now you're in temporary housing, so you're transitioning, and you and your child are staying with your mother or your grandparent. You're technically considered doubled up, and you would actually be eligible for the busing and some other things within a school that is known as being a student in temporary or transitional housing. And you should absolutely let your school know. There's a form that you fill out so that the school identifies you as being in temporary housing. And then there are other supports in addition to eligibility for a bus that you can get. Students in temporary housing and foster care. So the one important thing here to make sure you remember is that students with busing recommended on their IEPs and students in grades K to 6 in the DHS, Department of Homeless Service Shelters, do not need to complete an exemption form. DHS has a relationship with New York City Public Schools, and so that is the only situation that we listed that you wouldn't need to do the form for. All right, so we're going to stop for a moment to move on to questions, and then we're going to take this question section briefly. So Doris, if you can please check any questions on the Facebook, and I'm going to get the ones from the Q&A. So we answered already that there's not a set number of students on a small bus. Someone says bus had an accident and the school nor the parent was notified, and child had to be sent home by parent in an Uber. What is the protocol in this situation? So I would.
Rima?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, so I looked up a conversation about that which occurred on the PIST space NYC Facebook group, which involves a number of active and retired bus drivers sprinkled in among all the parents with all the questions. And that question, unfortunately, has come up. And so the driver is supposed to immediately tell the dispatcher where they are, the bus number, the route number, how many students are there, if an ambulance is needed, God forbid. The dispatcher is then supposed to tell the public schools, and will show you their delay breakdown site later. But it says that in between the company and the DOE, they notify the schools and the schools notify the parents. They said that the attendant on the bus is not required to notify the parents one by one, but many will to keep you from worrying, which goes back to how we set up a good rapport with the team that's on the bus with our children. I have just for you to be aware that they have to report these accidents. If they don't, they can get in serious trouble. And the downside is that even if it's a minor accident, oftentimes they have to wait and have first responders come and verify that nobody needs to be seen medically. Or if there's another vehicle involved, they're waiting and exchanging information, I assume. So we do need communication to happen about this so that you and people at the school are aware to keep an eye on the student in case they have a concussion or something later on. I think we have to continue to fight for dedicated routes where there's just one campus per bus so that it's not so hard for them to notify and get the word out and have to be filtering it out through all these different schools that share one route. I'm sure Rima has more experience to add about this.
I mean, I would also say take your child to a doctor at any time an accident happens because you never know and you don't want, it's better safe than sorry. So if there's ever an accident, whether you are told or not, I would always take the student to the doctor and let them know what's happened so that they can run whatever test to identify, because some pretty serious things can happen from a minor accident. And so we want to make sure that anything is identified in time. And you also want to file a complaint. So you want to go to your school, try to see what your path is. We're going to give you some escalations, and calling 311 is always a helpful way to post as well. Can we request a bus company change? No. I wish there was a more eloquent way to answer that, but unfortunately, not really. Not unless there's something going wrong with the route. You can file any complaints, vendor misconduct if something is happening. The company may change your staff, if that's the issue. But in general, the general answer is no.
I would just add that sometimes if it's, do the complaint about what it's about. If it's apparent to the people at OPT that this company cannot handle this route because of staffing, or it was a wheelchair riders route and they don't have the proper bus for it and things like that. It's not easy, but it's not impossible for them to reassign routes to a different company that's better equipped to handle the specific situation. Again, it would be all easier if it was all under one company or just, directly owned as a public service, but we have this piecemeal situation. So do your complaints and push and escalate, and hopefully we'll get to a day one day when all of the bus companies are equally competent.
Amen to that. Let's get there. All right, next question. What can we do if the bus is arriving after school starts every day because the bus is double booked? So we call that a double route. And so you have to file the complaints, right? Because if the student is getting late to school, then that is a complaint in itself. If they're getting picked up late from the home, that's another complaint. So for example, the parent can complain that the student is the route is coming late to pick up. The parent can also file the late to school if the bus comes after school starts. So if school starts at 8 and the bus comes at 8:10, you can file the late to school because they are late to school. Then if you're not having the pickup issue, but it's the drop off, so like they're picking up 2 runs and they're dropping at another school, or if there's just too many students on the route and they're not getting done in time for when school starts, you have to keep filing those complaints in the morning and in the afternoon whenever it's happening, because you have to flag to OPT that it's a conflict route. That's usually what they call it, is a conflict route, it's a problem route. And then if there's no data to show that it's a problem route, if none of the parents are filing complaints, the school's not filing complaints, or if the school is only filing complaints and nobody else, they may not fix it quickly. And in our experience, we found that when the principals get involved, that helps a little bit. When they escalate to the transportation, the liaisons in the district, that is sometimes helpful. But it's really helpful when multiple parents on the route file multiple complaints in conjunction with the school filing complaints. You have to file the complaints. And again, we'll go over the escalation path, but it starts with calling the helpline. Can students who go to a non-public school set up NYCSA accounts, New York City Schools accounts? Yes, you can. You have to reach out to the local superintendent's office. So whatever community school district you're in, so let's say you go to school in Harlem and your student is physically in a community school in District 4, you will have to go to the District 4 superintendent's office so that they can support in helping you set up this account. Same with charter schools. Again, this is the only way to access your transportation information. So they are required to give you access because it is an educational document for your student. They don't provide it any other way. So they have to give you access. Next. My son is in a private school and I tried to open an account and was unable to do so. How can I open this account? Contact the local superintendent's office. Later in the slide deck, there is a page that shows you how to get the information for the superintendent's offices. And ask OPT attendant, the one that takes the report, to read your complaint back. Sometimes some of them do not state exactly how parents report the complaint, and always ask for the reference number and follow up. I did request a change of matron and driver. I had various reports. Thank you. So those again are really great tips, is that the reporter, right? The what do they call them? Agents? The agent?
Customer service.
Customer service agent, the person that picks up the phone when you call the call center, make sure that they read you your complaint back because sometimes it's phrased in a way where it doesn't say what you said.
Mm.
And then the complaint then is not really a complaint, right? Like then it might be like, oh, I'm just mentioning this. And it's like, no, this is a problem. So we want to make sure that your complaint is actually a complaint. So please verify what was said so that you can confirm that they said what you said. And
Can
then, go ahead.
Okay. Honestly, it's on the last 2 issues, but I'll work backwards because we just said this about calling OPT. They have tier 1 and tier 2. So, the person who you're speaking to obviously is not a router. They have no actual control, but they can give you that number. I think they're still calling it an incident number.
Yeah, as far as I
And
know, it's still incident number.
And if they sound like they're new and they don't know what you're talking about, you just ask them to speak to somebody higher up, and be a thorn in their side until you get what you need. And there is also a way to submit for these ticket numbers online that somebody can just ask it. I can then put it in the Q&A with the link and the instructions as it is now. It has moved around. It's been very slippery and changed names on the site. But it's there, and they have to, they have to track this, and they got all this money again for the call center. So make them earn their money. That's it. But the NPS, I'm so sorry. We have definitely seen and know and have in our group parents at non-public who have both the NYC account where you can read your child's accommodations, their bus route, their codes to get rideshare, their whatever, and are able through that to then get the school bus app to theoretically track the bus, position, and save some wondering about how soon it might be showing up. But some of them, they have it because the child came from public and then went to non-public. So at least they had that 9-digit OSIS number. If you have that, that might be a helpful tool when you're working through this. A lot of the non-public parents got kicked off before the 2023 to 24 school year when there was like some privacy issue with some platform and they deleted everything. So you guys got deleted. It's gonna take some maneuvering and you will likely run into some people who say, no, it's not possible, or I don't know how to do it. Really, there should be a lot more of this information being shared, but you definitely do need a code a creation code for that account, and that you can only get from the district. The district, if it's a public school, will give it to your school, but the others are gonna have a harder row to hoe, as they say. Okay.
Thank you. Oh, that's all of them. Okay. Doris, do you have any on Facebook?
Again, if someone would just type a quick question about the online, I can then answer it, and I think everyone would see it.
You can chat it. You can chat it to and change it to everyone.
I'll try. I had
Okay.
trouble earlier, but I'll try.
Okay, if it doesn't work, I'll see if I can adjust that.
Okay, thanks.
Doris? I can't hear you, Doris. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. All righty. I believe this question goes back to the to training. How or to whom should we as parents inquire about the training received by our children's bus driver, matron, and substitutes?
Say that again.
How or to whom should we as parents inquire about the training received by our children's bus driver, matron, and substitute?
So I don't know what we mean by substitute unless we mean like substitute driver or matron. That's kind of what confused me. But if we mean just the bus staff in general, like just from the bus company, not from the school, you can ask the bus driver or matron. You can ask your transportation coordinator at the school because they're also supposed to do a joint training as well as whatever training the bus company provides. And your transportation coordinator may be able to connect you with who does that, or they may be able to ask who their contact is in the company for that. As a greater question, this can go for the escalation path, where this is really like advocacy, right? Like, so every company can provide whatever training. Like, as far as I know, there's not like a standard, this is the presentation you provide. Each company provides what they are required to provide. And then the school tends to provide a little bit of extra on what their specific student population is going to look like and what they need. I would contact the school because the school should be your first line for everything. If you have a good relationship with your bus staff, I would ask the bus staff as well. Feel free to call the company and ask. And then as we go into the escalation paths, those will be some areas that you can explore to ask these types of questions as well. So everybody knows Sarah is putting things in the chat, so you guys can keep an eye on that. All right.
Can I say something about training? And I hope it's okay, but
Yeah, no,
there
go
is,
ahead. Before,
okay.
yeah, because we're gonna transition to other topics. So finish off training, and then we'll move on to alternate PM drop off.
Okay, yes. So the school system does have vendors who they get to do these trainings. But you know, we saw during when there was training about COVID precaution that in some places the company sent a whole, presentation and they actually talked about it. And in other places, they gathered everybody in a tight room and read to them off of a paper. So there's training and there's training. And this coming Monday, there's actually a city council hearing that relates to two safety issues with busing. One is the training and the other is the stop arm camera, meaning when the bus has the stop sign out and the lights flashing, that if somebody was to whiz by, they could take a picture. So those are some of the things that are happening locally to change legislation. But you can contact us at pistnyc@gmail.com to get on the mailing list. This is actually an answer to another question about latest updates, and the Metropolitan Parent Center also sends out newsletters, but events like that, I'll put something about it very quickly in the link, just to give you guys an overview that it's not written in stone. Everything we have, some generation fought for. So we need to be the generation that's fighting for better training and safety for the kids on the bus now.
Thank you. And I'll make sure that we include that information in the follow-up that we send with the slides. So now we'll go a little bit quicker because these are just like one-off topics that are in the realm of transportation. So alternate PM drop-off. So some families, you may work, you may have a babysitter or an after-school program, and you need your student to get dropped off somewhere that wasn't where they got picked up from. There is a form for that. We have attached a link so that you can visit the website on this, and then you can see the form there as well. Just know that all changes require 10 business days. So let's just call it 2 weeks, and make sure that you're putting this in as soon as you know you need it so that you can be routed appropriately and there are no interruptions in service for your student. If you're applying for this annually, like it's not something that just happened, there is a date that changes every year in the summer by which you need to have this in, and before the summer for summer program if you need this in place. So please pay attention to the dates, because if you miss the date, you're likely not to have the correct drop-off address when program starts, be that in the summer or at the beginning of the school year. And this is what the form looks like. So this is what you would be filling up. And this is, again, alternate pickup or drop off. And the alternate pickup situation is really specific to joint custody. Where's my bus? So this is a website that you can visit to check out school delays and OPT bus breakdowns daily. So if they happen to say, oh, we're in traffic, there's heavy traffic, or our bus is broken down, we're waiting for another bus, you can visit this website and you can check out, when I took the snippet, it wasn't a school day, but you would see a whole list here, and you can see the different headings. So bus route, the bus number, the route, the reason, when it occurred, and the estimated time they're going to resume their route. So it's really helpful to have, but always call them as well.
I would just add that those disappear at the end of each business day. So if you want to know today whether your bus was delayed yesterday, you can't do it unless you've downloaded it. But they do have to send those reports to the city council twice a year.
Thank you. So no bus, rideshare. So briefly about rideshare. Rideshare is a service that started getting provided post-COVID when students didn't have bus routes, and was expanded to when students don't have assigned paras for a long term. So again, this is a route outage or para outage. And these students would then be offered the option to have a car pick them up. They need an adult with them in the car. They would be taken to school, and then the adult could be taken after that to wherever they need to go, whether that's back to school, back to their home, or go to work. And then the same for the afternoon. The parent would be provided transportation to the school from wherever they are, and then they would be provided transportation to the home after picking up the student. Yes, you do have to have an adult, even if the student is 18 years old. Rideshare codes. So in your New York City Schools account, your NYCSA account, you go into your transportation section, and as you scroll down, you're going to see a section, a heading that says vehicle modifications, and under there, you're going to see your rideshare code. And the code will change from session to session. So the summer code typically is not the code in the fall, and vice versa. And again, rideshare is only available for students with disabilities who have the mandate for transportation on their IEP or 504, and they're getting curb to school pickup or have an approved medical exemption from OPT, exception, excuse me, and students in temporary housing and foster care. And again, specific to the description on the screen. So eligible students would then qualify for, again, only for the outage for the route, so now it says due to driver absence, but it has to be a prolonged absence, right? The route has to be out of service. They're not going to put the route out of service for 1 day of absence. If the driver is out and has COVID and can't come in for 5 days, that's different. But if it's like a one-off out, just today they're sick, they'll be back tomorrow, they're not really going to do the ride share. Delays in route assignment, so you just don't have a route at all, or the accommodations on the IEP are not in place. For example, there is no paraprofessional, or they don't have a nurse. And again, absence is not a 1 day absence. Absence is they're going to be out for a period of time and you're aware of it. If the bus route is not active, then, or if the conditions above are not present, then the student will not be eligible, and if you're not eligible, you're not eligible for reimbursement either. So, and there are some situations, so like the one-off situation, you can get reimbursed if you have to take your kid because the para was absent or the bus didn't come that day. That's the only situation specific to rideshare. Yep, and we'll show you in the next slides more information on the way rideshare works, but we won't actually go into it too much. So this is booking contracted payment rideshare. Again, we're not going to go into it, but you can screenshot it just for your information. We did cover this in the first webinar, but we thought it was important for people to have the information when we send the slide deck out. And you see the phone number is there as well, so you can contact them and get support. And same with this. This is private rideshare, and you have the links here as well as the email address to reach out for reimbursement.
I'm gonna put something in the chat about reimbursement, just so people have that for the online process as well.
Thank you. And so we have here reimbursements about curb to school and the following eligibility situations. And here is, so temporary, if a student is temporary housing and has busing service, foster care and has service, transferred housing and has service, or if they're mandated for service. And please note, any tips, tax, wait time, no-show fees are not going to be covered by reimbursement, or ride share. If you want to tip the driver, that's not covered either. That is on the parent. And then travel reimbursements can be denied if your child was routed and the department DOE can't verify that the bus experienced a delay. So maybe, your bus was 20 minutes late. You decided to take your student to school. You put in for reimbursement, but the bus came 35 minutes late. They're not going to reimburse that because you did have bus service that day. Or if the form is incorrectly completed, please make sure you review your forms because they will not reimburse you if there are mistakes on it. And so please resubmit if you're denied because maybe it was an error in the form. But if you're eligible, you're eligible. Please try to make sure you get your money.
And they are having people do this one day at a time. So you're putting in the morning if you needed it in the morning and the afternoon if you needed it, but only for that day. Some parents are advocating for them to at least give us like a whole week, the way they do with, reimbursements to get related services outside of the school and things like that. It's not easy. I just put it in the chat with some tip. Oh, I put the wrong thing. I'll put it again. Because, they may say, oh, well, how do we know the kid actually was in school? So get ready to have the attendance report if you need other supporting documentation. And I will redo that.
Thank you. All right. Now, reminders about reimbursement. Save detailed receipts. There is some reimbursement by mileage. Reimbursement, again, as mentioned, is one form per day. We're advocating for that not to be the case, but for right now, it's one form a day. And you can go to this link to submit a reimbursement request. Again, you'll receive that when you receive the slides. You're going to select create a ticket, continue as guest, and then fill out the online form. Please have your 9-digit student ID number as you will need this, and keep a copy or take a screenshot so that you have proof that you filled it out the way you filled it out, because maybe they're saying there's an error and there wasn't, and now you have proof of that. And you have this email for more support, and you can always contact the parent center if you need additional help. Reimbursements denied. So if your reimbursement was denied, you may not fall into one of the above categories. And again, we're not going to go into much detail. We just wanted you to have this on one slide so you can understand why this situation would happen. So I'm not going to take the questions here. I'm going to finish, we'll finish, and then we'll take the questions at the end because we've cleared out the Q&A. All right, so hard times of busing. So beginning of the school year is one of the tough times, and even, the beginning of the school year, every time we begin. So when we come back in January, it's tough. When we come back for summer, it's tough. Matriculating to new programs. So when your student, moves up from program and goes into the next level, which is either kindergarten or going into middle school, 6th grade, or going into high school, 9th grade, these transition points are also points that are a bit tough for transportation. United Nations Week, which is this week, particularly if you are
the slide is not shown. The slide and I think the one before were not in front for me anyway. I don't know if other parents can.
No, I think it's a connectivity on your end, because
Okay.
I do see it. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. So United Nations Week is this week, and that's tough for particularly those in the borough of Manhattan, because it creates a lot of gridlock. And so your routes may be late, or you may see students with extended travel time taking MTA through the city. There's something called the PIC, which is a couple of times throughout the year where the union allows their members to pick routes. They're tenured members, so they have members that have been there longer than others, and they have the option to pick routes that, maybe closer to their home, or, for whatever reason, that is afforded to them with their tenure. And so you may see staff change at weird times during the year. Sometimes like in October or November, sometimes around February. But you may have that change in staff. And again, this doesn't come with that day where they do the dry run. So they have to learn the route while they're picking kids up. So just want to make you aware of that. Also, half days and Regents Week are a bit difficult, particularly if your route is combined with schools that have differing schedules. Regents Week is tough because not all students have all tests. So your student may have a test at 11 o'clock and they're not going to have a bus because the bus comes at 7. So that's another situation. You definitely want to reach out to your school and get support and make a plan before that week or before a half day so that you can already have that settled. Inclement weather, you know, I remember a few years back for 6 inches of snow, it basically shut the city down. We had kids on the bus till midnight. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that and to plan accordingly. So now bus tracking app. So these are screenshots of what the app actually looks like. We've included the link for the website. So when you click the website, it'll give you the option to download, and then you can pick, whether it's Google Store or the Apple Store to get it from. We've blocked out the information, but everywhere you see a lock with the stars would be where there's information, whether it's student, driver, route, what have you. This is the rideshare code here in the middle. And so you're going to see your transportation. It's going to show you the school that you're at. It's going to show you the type of service, so door to door. It takes you to a link to learn about eligibility. Then you see the school's information should be listed there. Most everybody has under the vehicle modifications a rideshare code. And then if you have any accommodations, that would also be listed there, but this student does not, so there aren't any. And then the date range, you'll see the start date and the ending date, and then you'll see the bus schedule daily. And if you click Monday through Friday, not here, but on your app, it will show you each day by day what it is. Some schools have a day where they have a half day that should be reflected there. And if you have like an alternate drop off or anything, you'll see that there as well. If you have an alternate drop off on one day, you'll see that. And then this is an example of what the route looks like. So as I mentioned, Manhattan, right by Synergia. And this is what the route looks like when you're watching the bus in real time. And it says outbound to school. That means the students on their way to school. And then these are some more pictures of other screens that you'll see. So this is providing voucher information where you input to put your code. And this is when you go out to the Lamosa system to use the rideshare code. So there is a specific website for that. And then when you click into there, you copy that rideshare code we took from that other page, and then you paste it into here where it asks for the voucher. One of the common messages that we've been hearing about is that something went wrong, please try again. So sometimes if you can't get in, or if the server is down, or whatever issue, you may see this. Or you may see driver offline. That may mean that the GPS on the bus is not working. That may mean that they don't have it turned on. That may mean that the student doesn't have school today, so the driver is not on. But this is just some information about the tracking app. And again, we've included the link so you can download. Route time limits. So this was a question I was asked earlier. So OPT max time limits, and again, this is including their 15-minute grace period. It goes by age and grade. So in pre-K, 3K, and early intervention, in borough, so if you live in Manhattan, you go to school in Manhattan, your maximum time is 75 minutes. If you're in kindergarten to 12, it's 90 minutes. Now, if you're out of borough, you live in the Bronx and you go to school in Manhattan, then it's 105 minutes for our younger learners and 115 for K to 12. Now, contact your school. These are all the situations you should contact your school. It's not every single situation, but these are You know, the common ones, again, we've mentioned it, like when the bus is late, or if you're filing a complaint against the bus staff, or if you have questions about Metro cards, accommodations, etc., you want to reach out to your school. And we also included a link where you can get more information, including finding your contact info for your school. Contact your bus company when the bus is late, when the bus did not arrive, or if you're not sure of your times that you get picked up and dropped off. The bus company is directly responsible for that. OPT is not going to know what time your bus is supposed to come, and they're not going to be able to tell you when they're going to come. The bus company can dispatch directly to their drivers, but also have a record of this. And they may not have the pickup and drop off times, but they can call your driver directly. Call OPT when you want to submit a complaint against the bus company. Again, that's the customer service line, or report a safety concern, you know, if something's happening on the bus, or if the harness is not right, or if the bus is driving unsafe, you want to report that, or if there's an emergency, or the situation, again, reporting an accident. And again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to transportation reimbursement, and you can reach out to their customer service line. OPT doesn't actually have an email, but again, you can fill out the forms on the website, and we've included all those links. Have questions, need more help? You can always contact us. So we are Synergia Metropolitan Parent Center and Parents to Improve School Transportation, emails included. We have the link for parent centers. Should you ever move to another state, there's a parent center in every state. And then there are other offices. We have our councils for our parent leaders. So Citywide Council for Special Education and District 75. We have our Special Education Central Office, which is an amazing resource, and the Special Education at schools.nyc.gov inbox is very helpful. And then there's information here on how to reach your local community education councils, your city council representatives, or your public advocate. And we also have the resources for PIST, just so you can read more. And here's some transportation contact info for your pre-K programs, your EI programs, and your DOE. So these, you can click on any of these, and then it'll take you into their information. And if you have a student with disabilities, or you suspect they do, and you believe that they are not receiving their FAPE, their free and appropriate public education, which means if your bus is not limited time, if it's not getting to school on time, you can request an impartial hearing. And we've included the information for that. And if you visit our YouTube, you can see one of our past webinars that's all about impartial hearings. Here's more contact and support information for the CSEs, Committees on Special Education, the Early Intervention Regional Office, should you be having issues that you're not able to resolve at the local level, the bus companies for early intervention, pre-K, and school age. So there'll be a list here. The numbers may not be updated, but when you call a number that's not right, they should be able to give you the right number. Sometimes the base is in Manhattan and you need the one in the Bronx. Still no bus? Here's your escalation paths. So we have the superintendent's office, and there are 2 links here to get their information. You can contact the Central Office of Special Education for New York City Public Schools at their inbox or this phone number. And then you can pursue mediation or impartial hearing if you feel that you're not getting your free and appropriate public education. And then you can also explore UFT special education complaints, which we've had some success with in this past year or 2. It's a path that we haven't previously explored, but has actually been very helpful. And you can also file a state complaint. And we've included that information here. Reminders. So please sign up for your NYCSA account, your New York City Schools accounts. And if you're not in a New York City school, you can contact the local superintendent's office, which 2 slides ago we gave the links to get their information. It should have how to contact them by phone and email. keep us updated. So, and that's your schools, right? You want to notify your transportation coordinators at school or your bus driver if there's any changes, and confirm that if there's any changes in your NYC account, confirm that they're reflected there. And if you need to make any changes, your school would then have to change anything if you want to change your info in the NYC account. And then you check the account to make sure it's actually reflected. And then meet your bus team. Get to know your driver, your attendant, and make sure you have your bus company's correct phone number. Practice safety. So review safe travel tips with your child and ask the questions. Are you trained? Do you know how to do the car seat? Do you have the wheelchair lift? All the things. Make sure that they're prepared for your child when they pick them up. Tips and tricks. So, you want to contact your companies by calling early in the morning. They might be open extra hours before school, and maybe so Labor Day, if it's right this September, so before school starts, and even in January, a couple of days before, they may be open because they're trying to get all of this organized. We also have one company, Nice Bus, who New York City School Bus Umbrella Services, and they have an online form where you can contact them for issues. And you want to also contact parent groups and, make sure your emergency information is up to date. Check your NYC, immediately update any changes, and know your bus stop. Try to arrive a few minutes early or wait outside a few minutes early for curb to side. The bus shouldn't be more than a few minutes late and must continue on its same route. So you should never have the situation of it not showing. And problems with the school bus route, here's a helpful one-pager on how to get support. And here's the document in Spanish. And again, everybody will receive this after the presentation. And then we have our resources and more forms, all the forms we mentioned. And these are all of the references for where they're located on the New York City Public Schools website. And now I'd like to end with Q&A. I know that we've done it several times throughout, but if anybody has any burning closing questions, I'd like to take those now. Doris, if you see any on Facebook, because I don't see any here. And if not, we'll get ready to close out and share our survey. So while we wait for Doris to look for if there's any questions on the Facebook, I'd like to actually share the QR code for our survey. So if you guys can please fill out our survey, this helps us to continue to do what we do, to know that what we're providing you is what you need, and to make sure that we can continue to do it for you. So Doris, do you see any Facebook questions?
Yes, Rima, we have one question via Facebook. What is a student's OPT code and how can we find them when filing an online applicant or application?
Okay, so when filing a complaint online, so your OPT code, I'm not sure what you mean by OPT code. So there's different things that you need when you file a complaint. So for example, the one thing you need is your student's ID number, which could be called the OSIS number, which is just your student identification number. The OPT codes, if it's asking for a code, that might be something that a school has to do. So I know when schools call to file complaints, they have a code that represents the school, but the only number that is affiliated with the student is their student ID or that rideshare code that we showed, but that's specific to rideshare. Sarah, anything on OPT code? The question is, what is a student OPT code and how can we find them when filing an online complaint?
I think it's probably the ID number that you mentioned, which is the same across, all educational and related services for the child. I hope the parent heard the response and is maybe putting something further in Facebook to clarify. But yeah, there's they don't assign a different code to the child. They used to this is important to know that they used to have a menu on the phone where you would just type in your child's date of birth and you would type in those 9 digits of the OSIS ID and they would give you back your route number. But they have, I guess, been told that that's not confidential enough and it's now harder to get information about an individual student over the phone. They will tell you that they're not allowed to give it out and you better call your school. Or they'll tell you to call a bus company, whether or not you've been told yet what your bus company is. However, and I'm saying all of this because I'm gathering that what the parent needs to do is be able to exchange information about their child with the people who can make their situation more ideal. Or just give information that is missing and hard to locate. Yeah, they have been known at times to answer yes or no questions. You know, legally, that's a little workaround. So if you say, you know, my child is this, they were on route X123, and have they been switched to a different route? And then you would at least have a start. But the school should have gotten things from them saying which student is on which route. Just that, you know, it may go to the principal and the principal is not necessarily the transportation coordinator. So somebody has to be alerted by you at school to say, oh, the matron said they're switching her. What's going to be my new route? And, you know, spark them to look that up instead of assuming they're going to have the initiative and the wherewithal with everything that they're balancing in the school office to, you know, go in every so often and check and see who's on what bus. You're going to need to take that first step. And I hope that helps. Doris, was there any follow-up from that parent after?
Yeah, she said, I jumped in on my phone. She said that that it's saying OPT code and not OSIS number, which is strange. Again, so for me, that sounds like a school complaint portal, like maybe that's specific to the school because there is no OPT code for students. It's just the rideshare code and the OSIS numbers. But if you can share the link for where you're seeing that, I'll check the link on Facebook and we can try to figure that out and troubleshoot that. But no, there are no additional codes for students. And that's all the okay, I do
I'm
see two
sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are medical codes, like that word code is also used in the context of how the people on the bus, the adults know this child is supposed to have a harness or they're supposed to have a para. Those are codes and they'll have like a 2-letter code sometimes that indicates which disability out of the 13 in the IDEA law applies with that student as their primary disability. And they will have like a numerical or combo letter and number code that's, for example, 02 used to mean it has to be a mini wagon. And if they don't have that code, if they're older than pre-K, you cannot assume that they're going to have a mini wagon with an attendant to help them on and off and getting buckled. I hope that helps.
Thank you. And you can always submit it to us in an email as well. And thank you, Ellen, as well. She says, thank you for informative and far-ranging discussing of busing issues. We appreciate your attendance. And we also have a question. Can you put the email for reimbursement in the chat? I can't, Sarah, but if you can, the I think it's travel reimbursements at schools, but just verify. We'll try to throw that in for you now. So we're
It's,
gonna,
yeah,
yeah.
it's in there at like 12:27 p.m., but
Mhm.
I'll put it again.
Thank you. All right,
Mhm.
so those are our two last questions. I want to please direct everybody to the survey on the screen. And if you can check your chat, you'll also see the survey link in the chat. We would love if you please fill out the survey. It's very important to help us continue these workshops and make sure that we're saying everything you need to hear and letting us know that the information was helpful to you and your families. So thank you again. And I will hand it back to my colleague Doris. And we can't hear you, Doris. I'm sorry. We might be double muted.
Uh, no worries. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed today's presentation on Where's My Bus, September 2024 edition, NYC Student Transportation. Special thanks to our presenters for leading this webinar on such a great, important topic. Ms. Sarah and Ms. Seema, thank you. And as stated, we encourage you, your audience, to please complete the survey. And if you have any questions that you guys would like to share with our presenters directly, please let us know, and we will get back to you via email. Please and thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, yes, the transportation stuff is there. If we could just leave it open for a minute for people to hopefully capture. And I combined the correct link with the correct steps, which were kind of on two separate chat posts previously. I hope that's
Thank you.
more efficient, yeah. And good luck with that. It's not fast. It's not fast at all.